Hello and welcome to this China Future Tech webinar. I'm SCMP Plus Director Jacques Van Wersch, and today I'll be moderating a discussion about DeepSeek, a Chinese company that burst onto the scene late last year with an AI large language model that's challenging assumptions about how much companies need to spend to build out AI strategies. I have a few colleagues from SCMP with me here in the studio. First up is SCMP Technology Editor, Zhou Xin. He and I oversee the China Future Tech section, which in addition to AI covers EVs, semiconductors, aerospace, robotics, and medicine, or biomedicine, I should say. We also have Josephine Ma, our China News Editor. She has written on artificial intelligence from a geopolitical perspective. And finally, we have Matt Haldane right here beside me, who's a production editor on the tech team and who writes about AI with more of a focus on the technology. There's a fourth panelist of sorts that we'll hear a bit from soon enough. I asked DeepSeek models to answer some questions and recorded the answers via text-to-speech, which we'll be playing as part of the webinar. Thank you to all the humans who are taking part, both here and out in the audience. We received quite a lot of questions from webinar participants, and we'll be spending the bulk of the time answering those. To kick things off, I'm going to start with a question that DeepSeek itself actually came up with when I asked it for ideas for this webinar. And that question is, what distinguishes DeepSeek from other AI companies? And how does its approach to AI development set it apart in the race for AI supremacy? Here is its response.
DeepSeek distinguishes itself through a combination of specialization, innovation, and a strong ethical foundation. Unlike some AI companies that cast a wide net, DeepSeek focuses on solving high-impact, domain-specific problems, which allows it to deliver more targeted and effective solutions. It leverages unique datasets and proprietary algorithms, ensuring its models are both scalable and efficient. What truly sets DeepSeek apart, though, is its commitment to ethical AI, prioritizing transparency, fairness, and accountability in its development process. This not only builds trust, but also positions DeepSeek as a leader in responsible AI innovation.
Joe, what do you think about that response?
It's a jargon-laden answer, but what stands out from the answer is the notion of transparency and fairness. I think it highlights the nature that DeepSeek is an open source platform, and it shares the information, with the public. And it distinguishes itself from many other AI models, such as ChatGPT. Of course, there are other open source models as well, but this one, we always mention how it runs with a fraction of the cost of other models, and also its performance actually rivals many of the best models in the world, and that's what distinguishes DeepSeek from other models.
Yeah, they didn't say anything in this response about the cost. I think partly because I limited its response to less than 60 seconds. Joshine, can you just say a little bit more about that cost that everybody has been hearing about, this $5.6 million?
Yeah, I think the real cost of DeepSeek is a big issue of debate. And DeepSeek, its R3 model in the paper, it says $5.6 million US, which really shocked the world. That's why also NVIDIA stock price plunged to 17% overnight. But there are some third-party researchers and analysts saying the real cost for DeepSeek could be much higher than 5.6 because certainly excluded all the previous investments. Liang Wenfeng, the founder of DeepSeek, has said last year that, actually 2 years ago, said the company has accumulated at least 10,000 NVIDIA chips, and these are kind of not all the costs have been factored into the trading of DeepSeek. So I think the real cost is much higher than that.
Right. Let's, we were talking about jargon earlier. There are a couple terms that we might want to just make sure that everybody's clear on. I said large language model, for example, which we'll probably say LLM from now on. I guess we don't need to be covering something as basic as Gen AI, although you can maybe, Matt, just give us a quick précis. And just now, Joshine talked about R1 as if everybody knows, and not necessarily everyone who's joining knows the difference between R1 and V3, for example.
Sure. So quick primer. I'm sure you also mentioned, we mentioned that this is an open source model, so I think a lot of people at this point are pretty familiar with some of these concepts. Open source, of course, is just the source code is available for people to look at and modify for themselves. A large language model is the type of model that DeepSeek is, of course. This is probably the type of AI, generative AI, that most people are familiar with. It's what you'll get from ChatGPT, for example. That's you put text in, you get text back. There's other types of models that generative AI that can generate, say, audio and video, but that's not what we're talking about today. DeepSeek is a large language model. And then, so the types of models that DeepSeek have that are causing such a big stir right now are V3 and R1. V3 is the more traditional kind of model that people are familiar with, the kind of the GPT-4, GPT-4o kind of thing that you'll typically interact with through ChatGPT. And then R1 is what's called a reasoning model. This is OpenAI and others have also started to develop their own reasoning models where you can see them reason through their response. They kind of query themselves and work through the question before they offer up a final answer to that response. And that's what R1 is DeepSeek's version of that.
Okay. The question that we just had answered now, I used a response from V3. And the one I'm about to ask, and this is the last question that we're going to be doing with DeepSeek, was actually answered by R1. And then, indeed, I was able to see something that was very similar to what V3 said on the screen, and then it just changes, and it starts reasoning through the question. So this question, is from one of our readers. Actually, it's from Kaisha. Does DeepSeek have government backing, and how does it align with China's AI regulatory framework? And here is DeepSeek R1.
DeepSeek operates in compliance with China's AI regulations, which prioritize innovation alongside governance. data security, and ethical AI development. While explicit details of government backing aren't publicly disclosed, DeepSeek aligns with national objectives like 2030 AI development goals, emphasizing responsible AI advancement. It adheres to laws on data privacy, algorithmic transparency, and societal benefit, mirroring China's balanced approach to fostering tech leadership while managing risks. This synergy positions DeepSeek as a competitive yet compliant player in the global AI race, supporting state-driven priorities without compromising regulatory rigor.
Yeah, a couple more notes on this. This was indeed R1, but I asked the question to 4 models. One was V3 running on US servers. One was on V3, I believe, running on China servers. And then the same thing for R1, US and China. And the answer that I used was actually R1 running on, I believe it was I can't remember, it was China. They all sounded very jingoistic, kind of nationalistic to me. The reason I use this particular one is because it's the only one that answered the question about government backing, which it didn't really answer because it doesn't really know. Hopefully, we've got even more reasoning in this room than R1 has, and so let me go to you, Joshine. What's the answer about government backing?
Well, thanks, Jack. Maybe the system doesn't give you an answer because there is no government banking per se, or at least on the public record. Actually, one surprising or beautiful thing about DeepSeek is that it is a total kind of private enterprise. Okay, it started as a side project for high flyer, the quantum trading. So they went from build up this powerful computing resources, and the Chinese government really doesn't like smart people using computing to trade stocks. So he put that into AI and made it. And the thing is, we went to the Hangzhou office of DeepSeek. We didn't see a typical kind of government building or these government-funded high-tech science park. It's a pure commercial building. In and outside are commercial residents. And what we before the Chinese New Year, there's still a huge Christmas tree standing at the entrance. There was nothing talking about state support, etc. But on the other hand, after the success of DeepSeek, yes, we can say over the last 2 weeks, DeepSeek has become kind of national hero. And almost like every Chinese state-owned company or private company is trying to jump on the wagon of DeepSeek. And yes, the trend now put it as it's kind of a darling for the whole country. And we can expect that if DeepSeek wants to develop, it will be very easy for DeepSeek to receive government support. But for now, from the beginning, for its birth, we do not see any public records of DeepSeek receive any government support in terms of funding or research or computing resources.
Of course, because it's a mainland company, on my socials, I'm seeing people posing questions to DeepSeek that basically they're basically gotcha questions, right? They're asking it about sensitive Chinese issues that have happened maybe over the last 30 or 40 years. So, and then they're getting non-responses. So, is this something? The issue is censorship, really. Josephine, what do you think that people should be concerned about that?
Right. I mean, the kind of questions that people pose to any Chinese developed innovation, that's kind of expected because they will have doubts about whether it has censorship or not. So we can, it's not surprising that people ask DeepSeek this kind of questions. But I think we should understand that all AI models, they have their own so-called guardrails. They have their own guardrails in order to comply with the local law. And so what's important here is the computing power of DeepSeek and how it can achieve this kind of performance with such a low cost. If you ask other models developed by the US companies, they also have their own guardrails. There are things that they wouldn't answer. And from the perspective as an end user, like myself, I would say that it's very important to understand that LLM, the large language models, they shouldn't be the only source of information for education or for like other kind of research. And for example, I looked at the website of OpenAI, and when it briefed the educator, it said that because a lot of information is skewed to Western values, and educators, they should be aware that when they use information, there are biases for all sorts of AI models. So that's from the point of view of an end user. We should know like what is the use for LLM.
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess we don't know whether we're bumping up against some kind of guardrail, or is it a lack of knowledge, or is it just pure censorship, right? We have a question from somebody who calls himself Steve, and he says, to what degree does removing censorship from AI improve its performance? And let's talk, in the context of DeepSeek here, and let me ask you that question, Matt.
Sure. So I guess maybe just first, the way AI answers questions is, or what kind of the basic way of training a model, you wind up with what are called weights, and you weigh answers according to the probability that they relate to other things, and that's how you get actual useful answers out of generative AI or LLMs. And then what typically happens, you can safety train these to to build it into the model, so you only get you have them avoid sensitive things or harmful information. But a lot of times, what winds up happening is that these companies, kind of as an afterthought, put on a filter, and you can see this with DeepSeek. So if you ask it about something sensitive, it'll give you a full answer. And a lot of people have commented about this online. And then what happens is that the answer just kind of disappears at the very end. So for the question of does it affect performance, it really shouldn't. You can see it is reasoning through everything. It's giving you an accurate response. But if it hits something sensitive that's filtered, it's going to disappear. But otherwise, for non-sensitive things, if you're just using it for, say, coding or math, things that reasoning models are supposed to excel at, the output should be very similar to what you get from other types of models.
I read somewhere that somebody was saying if you ask it a question, if you ask DeepSeek a question about Deng Xiaoping's 1992 Southern tour, you might get a cogent answer from DeepSeek. I haven't done it. But if you are lacking the context of what happened on June 4th, 1989, it might be kind of a contextless answer. It might not be worth very much. So I think what you're saying is it would probably be answering the question about the Southern tour, maybe not mentioning Tiananmen Square, but it would actually be including that knowledge in its response. Is that right?
Yeah, the knowledge is certainly there. So when you train these models, they're kind of everybody. All of these companies are throwing anything they can get their hands on at it because they want these models to be as smart as possible. And then they'll go back and according to the laws and regulations of the jurisdictions in which they operate, they'll say, okay, what can we have and what can we not have here?
Okay. All right. Good. Now the next set of questions are all kind of about how's DeepSeek going to be making money. So the first one from Albert Chiok: will DeepSeek remain an open source platform permanently, or will it get listed? Those are not necessarily mutually.
The question should be for Liao Wenfeng instead of for journalists.
But it goes to the next question from somebody named Sunil. How does DeepSeek intend to monetize its offering? And how might it be already monetizing its offering? And another question, no name given here, but is what is the total cost from start to finish for the DeepSeek operating AI service? This kind of goes back to the question you've already answered, so we won't go into that. But that is a question that people are answering. So how is it going to be how's it going to be making money, or was it indeed ever intended to make money? Why don't we start with you, Joshi?
Okay, so for DeepSeek, it's quite unique. Ever since the launch of ChatGPT, China has jumped on, and then there are a so-called chaotic war of over 100 large language models. And for DeepSeek, it's unique because from day one, the founder has a very clear vision saying we are doing fundamental research. We are doing AGI. We're not in a rush to make money. So actually, S&P has been covering this company quite closely in the last since its launch of V2 and V3, and also we did a in-depth coverage of its founder and its team 3 or 4 weeks before it gets attention of the mainstream media. So the thing is, first of all, they do not lack money because they still have the high flyer content trading, and they can make enough funding and profits to sustain the operation of DeepSeek. And then also from the perspective, the founder is quite committed to open source, and his vision or his purpose go far beyond making money. And that makes particularly bad for OpenAI, because OpenAI is supposed to be doing the open source, but people laughed OpenAI become close to AI, particularly in view of DeepSeek. But now increasingly we can see that all the China's major cloud providers, all the infrastructures, even chip developers are jumping on DeepSeek. So I don't think we need to worry about like DeepSeek's commercial prospects. I mean, it certainly will not be short of funding.
What would so they can continue going even if it's as a loss leader, but what are they actually generating the money doing?
API, for instance, like if you access for commercial purposes, you pay a certain amount of money to the company. Of course, the charge is still much lower than, say, OpenAI 1/20th, I think. And today, DeepSeek just ended their 45-day kind of special promotion day. So API developers had to pay a little bit more if they continue to use their model. So there is a business model, yeah.
Yeah, okay, very good. And the next questions are very basic, but I think that we should make sure that we cover them. Can I upload docs or ask DeepSeek to write a program, asks Alice L. And is DeepSeek like a search engine, or what else can I do with it? This is from David Lewin.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, just like any generative AI or any LLM, you could put docs into it. I haven't tried it directly within, say, the DeepSeek app, but if you're running the model on your own computer or using it through another service, I'm sure there are options to have it pull information from documents for you, because any LLM would technically have the capability to do that. And then, is it a search engine? No, it's not. It's not a search engine. You can ask it information that you might ask a search engine, but within an AI model, all the information is contained within it, and it's a finite resource, right? What companies, say like Google, have done, or Perplexity, is they connect their AI to their search engines, and are able to pull in information from a much broader range of resources. But that's not coming directly from the model itself.
Okay. All right. Next questions are going to be about competitors. The first one is from Lisa Chan. Who are the competitors other than OpenAI and their models? A second question is from, I think, Michael, although it's spelled Michael. Is DeepSeek a boon to the Chinese tech industry in general? And he mentions Alibaba, Baidu, JD, and Tencent. Or is it likely to divide the industry into winners and losers? I just mentioned Alibaba, and for the sake of compliance, we'll just mention that Alibaba does own SCMP. Why don't we go here with? Why don't we start with just a few competitors from you, Joshi?
Okay, I think first of all, DeepSeek is possibly the greatest thing happened to the China tech world, in the last decade or even decades. Particularly if you think about ever since the launch of ChatGPT, China was putting a follower kind of position, and apart from the well-known restrictions of advanced chips from NVIDIA, China was also publicly humiliated by OpenAI. To this day, we cannot, Hong Kong or mainland users cannot directly, consumers cannot directly get into the ChatGPT because they think like China is too dodgy, so put it into the same group as North Korea and Iran so that we don't have access to that. So the launch of an open source model from a China startup is almost like celebrated as a big win in China from government officials, from the industry, and from the general public. So this is a moment, some U.S. investors call it Sputnik moment, the man-made satellite. But for China, it's almost a feel like, yes, China now has its own nuclear bomb, or this is something that it's great boost of the confidence to the whole kind of industry. And what we see in the last 2 weeks is a phenomenon. I mean, the whole world may not still get attention, pay full attention to this. The combination of affordable open source AI applications from DeepSeek and from other players like Alibaba, and the combination with China's formidable manufacturing, already EV, robotics, laptops. For the Tesla conference call, Elon Musk is saying, we are seeing 10 times of Tesla value because of the FSD, because of the full service driving system. But imagine like China has so many EV makers, so many powerful makers, and all of them can get smarter. And all the robotics, the dancing robots are from the same town. And we can, looking maybe down the road in the next decade, you can see all the smart hardwares made by China, but empowered by players like DeepSeek. So DeepSeek is offering brain to this kind of gigantic, powerful muscles China already have.
Yeah, and open source really is the word of the moment here now too, because if we think about the competitive environment, we've got companies in the U.S., but we also have Alibaba in the same week was talking about how it's incorporated DeepSeek into its cloud, and it also introduced a new model of its own, right?
Yeah, it upgraded its model, and Alibaba has both closed source and open source models. So they rolled out an update over the Lunar New Year holiday, saying, it looked like it was kind of a maybe a response to the fact that DeepSeek was capturing so much attention. They're riding that wave, and so they compared their updated Q1 model to the performance of DeepSeek's model. And saying it had good results. But on the point of like competitors, I don't know if people are asking like more globally who that would be. You're looking at, I think people are familiar with who the big players in AI right now are. You're looking.
Just go ahead for the sake of argument.
OpenAI, of course, which is backed by Microsoft. Microsoft has Copilot. Google has Gemini. And then there are the other startups like Anthropic, Mistral. These companies, they're probably the operators of the most well-known AI models. But the more direct competitors to DeepSeek might be more the Chinese companies, which of course Alibaba, Baidu has been a leader in the space for quite a while. ByteDance has Doubao. This was kind of a surprise, became a kind of a surprise leader in AI with the most popular AI app. But DeepSeek, of course, with this wave of popularity, their app has overtaken Doubao in daily active users for now.
All right,
Could
thanks
I
for that.
add a
yes.
question? In terms of competition, how does DeepSeek compare to other open source platform? For example, like Llama, or also like European countries are talking about having their own open source model as well. And how does DeepSeek faring comparing to them?
Well, I'm not an engineer. So I couldn't say like on a technical level exactly what the differences are. But I do know Meta, the Facebook owner, which has open source Llama models. They've been criticized for calling their models open source because they're the licensing that they offer the source code under is somewhat restrictive. You can't use it for commercial activities, for example. Whereas I believe DeepSeek does not have that restriction, or it's not as restrictive. Like it really is open source. You can yank out that code without agreeing to a bunch of terms and conditions and kind of modify it. And that's why you've seen this kind of flood of cloud providers now suddenly offering DeepSeek on their services.
Right, right.
Right. We had a few questions about the language of input and whether that makes any difference. One of them from Risa Recio Losava says, is DeepSeek using one particular language, like Chinese or American English, as the main language into further advancement of its AI? Another question from Eric Ong is, do I get the same search results when I search the same topic in Chinese, and we'll just say the same prompt in Chinese, and in English? Or will one of them be a machine translation of the other?
I think Matt should answer this question. Yes.
I think so too.
I've not tried DeepSeek. Actually, I may have tried DeepSeek in Chinese once, but I've not asked the same question in English and Chinese. But typically what happens is you don't get the same answer twice and from a large language model. It's coming up with the answers on the fly. But because they're kind of, in training these models, they're kind of feeding as much content as they can get their hands on, you'll typically wind up with responses. It can answer you in a lot of different languages because it's training on information in a lot of different languages. I think I've mentioned this example to you before, but Meta is kind of in some hot water right now because they were caught downloading this massive trove of pirated books. I imagine most of them are in English, but I know we've written about this pirate library before. A lot of those books are in Chinese. They're in many other languages from around the world, and these models are scouring the internet for different types of content as well. So you can talk to them probably in almost any language you want.
All right, let's move on to something a little bit more geopolitical, I guess. We get from Frank, did DeepSeek benefit from existing US technology and code? I mean, there's a very short answer to that, but let's, I don't know, Josephine, if you have a view on that?
Right. I think, DeepSeek has said, they develop their own code and they actually share the code with the public so people can check and they develop their own code. But the thing is, it still uses NVIDIA chips, but it used a lot fewer than like what people usually assume or usually expect, and like 2,000 chips. That instead of like maybe 10 times, only like 1/10 of the chips that are required for developing this kind of model, and but I think it's going to accelerate the AI race because soon after U.S. President Trump heard about DeepSeek, he said it's a wake-up call for U.S. companies, and people are expecting like more fierce competition from different companies. I mean, not just between China and the U.S. because I read from reports that European companies they are lagging behind, but they also want to take advantage of the open source platforms available to catch up with the AI race. So we can expect like AI race, AI competition between countries, between companies, between AI giants and or like smaller companies like DeepSeek. And now because DeepSeek gave hope to people that with fewer or with a lower computing resources and they can still like achieve this kind of performance, and it actually turn around people's belief that AI race is dominated by a few giants who can get hold of the most advanced chips. So I think that is going to affect like the dynamics between countries and also companies.
Yeah. Let me put Matt on the spot for this question, which is nobody's on the spot because the person didn't give a name, but it is DeepSeek superior and more reliable than ChatGPT? We also have another sort of related question, kind of related to what Josephine was just saying. With DeepSeek's rise, how do you assess China's ability to close the AI gap with the US?
Yeah, so is it more sophisticated than OpenAI? I think no. So the way these AI models are typically assessed are you get benchmark tests and they look at the output and they try to match it with the output of other models and see which gives more sophisticated answers or more correct answers for questions that can be assessed right or wrong.
In your Inside China Tech newsletter, you over the weekend, you said there was a league board, basically, a league ranking.
Yeah, there's a lot of different benchmark rankings.
Yeah.
So DeepSeek actually they rank quite high. And this is why they're being, like, all this attention came in, right? Because suddenly they're like, wait, the output looks very similar to some of OpenAI's GPT models. So if you can do that at the fraction of the cost of what OpenAI is doing, maybe you don't need these billions of dollars. But the output, I would say, no one has said it's surpassed what OpenAI or some of the other leading models are doing now, but they're saying on certain benchmarks, it's equivalent or better.
Yeah, let me jump in this. We're not saying like DeepSeek is superior than OpenAI per se. This is because the DeepSeek has basically provided another alternative, other than the U.S. business. Imagine like Russia or even Southeast Asia. Maybe Russia is concerned more about security issues, and in Southeast Asia about like cost issues. So the DeepSeek is providing them with different kind of choice, another option. So this is very, very important. And down the road, we can say like the future competition, like for human beings, you really cannot see the subtle difference between which model is more powerful. It's like the EVs. So maybe the Tesla EV, to some extent, is still better than the Chinese EVs. But in terms of the market share, of course, the Chinese car makers are going to have a bigger share because they're able to cut the cost or deliver all the functions that just do needed. So this is a similar kind of pattern in AI.
Yeah, and I think you already kind of answered the question about the AI gap. I think you're saying if you're calling this a once in a decade or more kind of result for as far as China is concerned in technology, then you are saying that just by releasing these models, the AI gap has been closed. I mean, not maybe completely, but it is
not
been
in
narrowed.
terms of like in the lab, like DeepSeek is better than OpenAI. But in terms of adoption, in terms of applications, yeah, I think China is significantly narrowed that gap.
Yeah. Okay. And I should note that when I asked the last question, the drumming started happening immediately above us for the lion dancers who've come into the studio. So we will probably be hearing some of that. I don't know if the listeners are going to hear it, but bear with us if we suddenly duck and cover, because sometimes it can be pretty loud. All right, so we've got a question from Jeff Uy, which is, what are the pathways for DeepSeek in the next 12 to 18 months on AGI? That is artificial general intelligence. Why don't we get we'll get a definition from Matt, and then I'll go to Joshine, which I'd like you to talk a little bit about Sam Altman's Stargate, or we should say the U.S. government's Stargate project, which you can describe in your answer.
Artificial general intelligence is just a way of talking about AI that is as intelligent as a human, or kind of can do everything. It kind of reaches human level intelligence. That's kind of what they're targeting there.
Okay, and very quickly, Matt, Are they going to reach AGI in 12 to 18 months?
12 to 18? No, I don't think we're going to. And I think there's some question of whether LLMs are capable of that. I've heard different things on that, and people have different views. But certainly in the 12 to 18 months, I'm not sure is realistic.
Okay, and Joshine, just to talk a little bit about the
Stargate?
This Stargate seems to be trying to, it's kind of trying to accelerate the path toward AGI, as far as I understand, by pouring billions of dollars into it.
Yeah, I think the Stargate, when it is launched, it's kind of like the project for the future, etc. But with DeepSeek, there are lots of questions about it. Like the first question is, of course, can all these billions of spending be justified? Maybe we don't need that kind of, from this level to another level, need another 100 times of computing resources. But in terms of infrastructure, yes, I think this is still very important. China is also doing a lot of these infrastructure, being huge data centers, computing centers, and from the local governments, from the telecom operators, from big tech themselves. So the competition of AI, of course, in terms of algorithms, of the models, of course, is one level of competition. Another level of competition is at who can build up the most powerful computing facilities, and this so that's a reason, I guess, for the U.S. still is particularly OpenAI is still quite committed on the Stargate.
Yeah, and when this was announced, Trump announced this on day 2 of his presidency. Sam Altman, who had to kind of sit in a separate room during the inauguration, got to stand at the lectern during this announcement. And as far as I can recall, they specifically mentioned China as a reason for this. This is they're feeling that China is trying to close that gap, and they want to make sure that they stay ahead.
In terms of infrastructure, yes. And then we should also bear in mind, Elon Musk says something immediately like, "Nah, you don't have that money. SoftBank don't have that kind of money. So you just have a headline figure, and your actual investment will be smaller than that." But in terms of building like electricity, in terms of power, data centers, China is always a powerful contender.
And more on geopolitics. We've got a couple more questions here. One from Andrew Leung. I don't know how you pronounce Leung in Cantonese.
Yeah.
Leung. How will DeepSeek overcome an intensifying U.S. semiconductor stranglehold? Then we have from Vincent, when will DeepSeek stop relying on American technology like NVIDIA? And then from somebody who calls themselves is China able to produce GPU chips to meet DeepSeek's requirements? So why don't you take the pure sort of geopolitical side of that, Josephine?
Right. I think one argument after the emergence of DeepSeek is whether the strategic the strategy to constrain China by banning the export of AI chips, whether sanctions still work, because China managed to get around the sanctions and come up with a powerful tool like this by using a lot fewer US chips. So that's an argument, like for many analysts, they are calling like we should review whether sanctions still work. And instead of banning exports to China, should there be like opportunities for collaboration? Because even Trump himself, he acknowledged like the cost effectiveness of DeepSeek and how this kind of breakthrough can actually benefit AI industry as a whole, for rich countries and also for developing countries, because this kind of models enable applicants or enables companies and also people to use a lot fewer chips, a lot fewer resources to run the AI model. So I think of course, on one hand, China is still using AI chips, and I'll leave the second question to my colleagues. But on the other hand, it's the time to review whether it's still trying to contain China through sanctions is still the best strategy.
Okay, and for the question of can China produce the kind of GPU that would power this,
I
or
think so.
are GPUs still the thing that
In terms
we
of
need to worry
training, maybe China DeepSeek has to still to rely on NVIDIA for a few more years. But in terms of like running the system, I think China's local GPUs have already rushed to adopt the DeepSeek models. So you can see all the GPU developers have started to publicly claim that they are trying to do some engineering and software modification so that the DeepSeek models can run more smoothly on their servers. So this is actually quite important. In fact, the competition rivalry between technology at the end of the day is about like education, talent pool. And if you zero in the competition on one particular like hardware, it's not going anywhere.
All right. Well, now we look at the sort of like industrial espionage side of this question. We have a question from Patrick Ong, who asks, was DeepSeek trained using knowledge from ChatGPT or other Western AI servers, or did it rely on publicly available Chinese and international data? We also have the question, are allegations of intellectual property theft true, from Dushan? And we have, do you foresee that the US will roll out new countermeasures, for example, technology or export controls, on DeepSeek? And this is from Eric Tangchi Hao. And why don't we start with you?
I guess on the so we don't know literally whether DeepSeek has trained on. There were allegations that DeepSeek had trained on answers from OpenAI models through a process called distillation. This is where you take you teach a smaller model from a larger model, so you can kind of compress that knowledge and get very similar performant answers back with less space. So it's a very clever technique, but what some companies do is they use the APIs to plug into another company's system and then ask questions, gauge the answers, and then use that to train their models and try to get similar targeted responses. Now, we don't know that DeepSeek has not commented on these allegations, I should point out, and we don't know that they did that. Analysts have said they'd be surprised if DeepSeek had not done it, because it's kind of, they see this as kind of an open secret within the AI industry that everybody's doing it. So they think it would actually be surprising if they weren't doing it. But this is a process that would very clearly violate OpenAI's terms and conditions, which is what's an issue there. I think intellectual property infringement, that's kind of another issue, and we don't know if they've done that, or, I guess there's an argument to make that, and some people are trying to make this argument that all AI companies are infringing on intellectual property.
It's actually a nonsense. Also, DeepSeek has never publicly commented. OpenAI also has never publicly commented. The thing is, unnamed sources told some media that DeepSeek may have access to the, and on the record is Sam Altman saying, no, I'm not going to sue DeepSeek, because the way to compete is just to develop better products. And this is because it's another point. This actually reflects the power and also the influence, the impact of DeepSeek. It's almost a knee-jerk reaction. There's nowhere coming from a Chinese small firm and produce this powerful product. They must have stolen something from the United States, but it's actually not the case.
Well, and it's also, there's this general sort of idea of, these Chinese tech companies, just something nefarious. So now, do we put DeepSeek in the same? Do we speak DeepSeek in the same sentence as TikTok? The U.S. government had a bill specifically targeting TikTok. That's all it was about, to get it to stop operating in the U.S. A lot of people ask questions related to, is DeepSeek the next TikTok with regard to the U.S. attacking it? We know that Trump is no longer on board with the TikTok ban. So this last question about U.S. rolling out new countermeasures, it's pure speculation, right? But what's your sense of it, Joshi?
Well, it would be self-harming if these governments trying to stop like the use of one alternative product there, no matter what the excuses are. And Donald Trump has said it very clear that it's not a threat to national security. It's an open source tool. It's just free for use, just there. It's available for everyone. So all these kind of like intellectual property theft or security concerns is more of a reflection of the impact and influence of DeepSeek, rather than a true reflection of the situation.
Okay. Now, getting back squarely onto the geopolitical, we have another couple of questions. One is from somebody named Boning, who says, aside from all the tech details, this is coming to you, Josephine, what is the geopolitical implication of DeepSeek? And then the next question is from a Dr. Alexander Kalsoyas, who asks a very long question. I apologize to the doctor, but I'm going to shorten it. Every significant AI system in the West has been contracted to the U.S. Department of Defense for strategic purposes. I can't verify that. I didn't try to verify it. How do you envision the PRC utilizing synthetic intelligence in its efforts to create a multilateral, cooperative global community? If leaders in the West cannot be approached on a rational basis, might not an elevated AI intelligence developed using a self-reflective model such as DeepSeek be an ideal mechanism to engage the West via AI systems in working together for the betterment of humanity? So that's going to you. Let's start again. I'm going to reread the first one because this will give you a very solid purchase. Aside from the tech details, what are the geopolitical implications of DeepSeek?
I think in terms of like China-U.S. relations, I think we can expect a lot more maybe rhetorics and calls for more restrictions on high-tech exports to China. But the thing is, there are already so many restrictions in place. I mean, there are already like the advanced AI chips have been banned. I mean, to be exported to China already. And how much more are they going to do? And of course, we know that after DeepSeek published the research paper on its model, U.S. President Trump met with NVIDIA CEO Mr. Huang, and we don't know the details of that meeting, but how the meeting was like arranged like right after DeepSeek, and that gave people a lot of room for speculation. But still, I mean, there are already so many restrictions in place. That's one thing, and also I think for China-U.S. relations is, I mean, the sanctions, Trump has already imposed like additional sanctions on Chinese goods, but that's not related to AI, not related to DeepSeek. And this kind of like bargaining, I mean, of course, he quoted fentanyl as a reason for the tariff. So this kind of bargaining and this kind of like tug of war will continue. But I think the fundamentals will not be fundamentals will not be changed because of this. Even though we can expect like more awareness from the U.S. side about the ability for China to bypass sanctions, to come up with a breakthrough and innovations, there'll be more awareness on that. And as I said before, we can expect more intensified AI race between countries and companies. But I think one interesting thing we should pay attention to is the call for AI global governance. So we know that there's a summit going on in Paris, and French President Macron, the European countries, they want to have this kind of governance models or rules being set up. China has sent a representative, But Trump is not interested in this. And so this is something we should pay attention to as well, because we can expect a lot of advancement in terms of the use of AI and also AI development. And is a kind of like global governance model or global governance framework needed? I mean, when this kind of development is so fast, that's something I think different countries should pay attention to.
This is an example of the U.S. government under Trump kind of leaving the arena to China. Really,
they said that J.D. Vance. To be fair, so it's the vice president is in Paris, so it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
but when we think about the geopolitical implications, China now is it rolled out its Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, and it's spent a lot of money on a lot of those projects. And then a couple years ago, Xi Jinping said, we're spending too much money. We're going to focus on small but beautiful projects. Mm-hmm. And now you've got a question of, we can build up some technological infrastructure, but we don't have to. If we want to give Global South technological bump, now we don't have to build quite as much as we used to in the past, right?
True.
Yeah.
So this is another area where you can say DeepSeek has kind of changed the game.
Yeah, and also it actually benefits the Global South. I mean, with a cheaper option available. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's end this soon. And so before we do that, I'm going to start with you, Matt, and go down the table and just. What do you think are the big topics in AI over the next few years, or what are you really kind of thinking about around AI right now? Like, what's the big topic that includes DeepSeek, obviously?
I think efficiency gains are, it's really. This is why you had Trump, even the president of the United States, commenting on DeepSeek. It wouldn't take notice if it weren't so cost efficient to run DeepSeek. I'd make a point about the technology, which is the way DeepSeek achieved this efficiency was by having. Very concentrated agents, specialized agents within the model that can be queried. So you're not constantly using energy, querying the entire model for every single question. And I think I've heard analysts say, this kind of continues along the trajectory that we've been seeing AI development happen at. And so I think it'll be interesting in the coming years to see how development of those processes go forward. And since DeepSeek is open source, that will probably be a big part of. You had Sam Altman coming out saying, maybe we should rethink. I think his quote was, "We've been on the wrong side of history regarding open source." So maybe things will start to open up, and DeepSeek's contributions to generative AI, I think, are going to be more widespread, and hopefully you'll see a lot more collaboration in this space.
Okay, Josephine?
I think the application of AI models like DeepSeek is something that we should pay attention to, because that gives rise to a lot of business opportunities. So many companies they are using they are going to use DeepSeek model technologies right now. So how that technology is going to benefit different businesses, or even manufacturing, or even other sectors, that's something we should pay attention to. But since my expertise is more with politics and also geopolitics, actually what really intrigued me is what kind of environment cultivates innovation. That's something I think I'm very interested in, and I think entrepreneurs and also educators should pay attention to, because the company culture of DeepSeek is very different from other for example, mainland state enterprises, or even like the big tech giants, and they hire young people with no experience, and they can think out of the box, and they have no KPI, and I mean, at least reportedly they have no KPI, and also they encourage collaboration. That's more like free collaboration. People can use their own strength. So this kind of factors actually enable innovation. When innovation is such an important topic for like different countries, or even for Hong Kong, for entrepreneurs, like at different levels. And I think it's something we should look at is what can encourage and cultivate innovation for the future. That's something I'm very interested in.
All right, Joshi?
Yeah, for me, I look at the combination or adoption of AI into these traditional industries and how this is going to change how we live and how we work. For now, I mean, the chatbots, they can generate impressive poems on the mobile phone, but that's only like for fun or for entertainment. But in the future, maybe they become really an indispensable part of our living and the office environment. And that's in your car, in your laptop, and in every kind of home appliance that can be adopted with AI and be intelligent, to be smart. And that's the future that I'm looking forward to.
All right, thank you. And that is all the time that we have today. A big thank you to Joshine, Josephine, and Matt. Thank you to everyone who joined, including all those who submitted questions. We'll post the summary of the discussion on the webinar page on cmp.com. And if you want to rewatch it, or if you know someone who couldn't join today, we'll also include the full recording on that same page. Stay tuned for more webinars in the China Future Tech series. Recall that the 6 areas of focus are EVs, AI, semiconductors, aerospace, robotics, and biomedicine. Thanks again for joining us, and see you next time.